Hello, everybody. Welcome here at the Kazerne at the Innovation Cafe. I'm very happy to be here again. It's been a while for me, so it's very nice to see some familiar faces, but also a lot of new people that added and are now regularly coming to these evenings. So thank you for being here. We have a really, well, at least I think so, a really interesting evening today because, well, the title already says it, but cut the crap, generate or delete. I think we can all say that at this point we feel on one side innovation is everything we want, but innovation and a purpose of speed, a drivenness, a solution-based thinking, because we feel that all the systems are cracking. We feel that things need to be different, that things need to change. But how do we actually do that? Because this feeling and this idea already lives on for so many years, and somehow it doesn't really feel like we're getting closer. Like we're only starting to react in a more shorter term. It's very difficult to think ahead, to see where the future goes, because we don't know what somebody's going to tweet every minute or every second of the day. So how do we work this out? Well, we have two people this evening that are specialized on this. So how can we move something and do that collectively, and how can we envision something that's far ahead and that actually helps us in how we need to decide where to go. So Chiara, we have you here as a transition designer. You're schooled here in Eindhoven and both in London, and then you came back here to help us out here in Eindhoven on those type of topics. And Walter, you've been here before. I think a bit more than a year ago, you already spoke about, well, wicked problems, of course, and how we should love our problems and not our solutions. And then you spoke very briefly about your experience with your sheep. And this is what you're going to explain to us more today. So I'm really happy that we do this follow-up. So, Chiara, can I just give you the mic and ask you to... Thank you, thank you. Oh, I have to think about one thing, because normally Ruud is here, but he's sick today. So I hope he's watching, and this is a good reminder for me as well that this lecture, of course, is going to be recorded. So if you think, okay, I need to see this back because they were really interesting, you can, but please also tell it to others. So if you hear something that you think is interesting, please also... Exactly. Hi, Ruud. Thank you. Okay, then back to here. Chiara, you have now the microphone. Can I ask you if you take us along with how we should have a more far-ahead vision and how it can help us acting as we do now?
Thank you for the lovely introduction. Is this good? Yes? Okay, great. What a question to start with. How should we look at the future? Personally, I think that we start to look at the future by looking at the present, and that there's also a lot of big lessons from the past that we conveniently sometimes brush under the carpet. And I say this from the perspective of how much beautiful innovation and how much beautiful design, how much beautiful connection we can find with each other already in the now. But it tends to get a bit clouded by this strive for more, strive for better, strive for some kind of ideal future. Here people will think of something when I say this. When I think of future, I think of people that talk about going to Mars. And I roll my eyes because I'm busy thinking, well, why are we already thinking about going to Mars when we can care about literally the 2 meters square around us better before we start to think about this massive endeavor, super resource intensive, that potentially could bring some good. But the cost of doing that is that we are neglecting what is really in front of us. So yeah, my call for the thinking of the future starts by caring about what is really around us. Yeah, I hope I answer you.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Thank you. Yeah, can you tell us a bit more about your practice? And okay, how do we then start? If we don't do big endeavors, but if we start here, how does that work? Can you take us along?
Yeah, so about my practice, I think the way you kindly introduced me as a transition designer, in basically what I'm busy with is that I'm busy with change. And that can look so many different things depending on the context of that change. It can be an organization that is trying to become more inclusive or more sustainable, or implementing a new process, or starting to have the difficult conversations. And so once again, the question of change, in my experience, comes from realizing that something in the now is not sitting very well, and that of course it's a push for the future. It's an endeavor towards the future, but it starts from the now. And for me, it's so important to always start. Okay, where are we at now? Can we look at also the past of this team, this organization, this process, this place, and that can ground us if we can look at it and honestly dive deep into it. We can ground our understanding for what can come next. So the roots of the future are already in the soil. That's the way I try to look at it in my practice. Yeah.
Thank you. And before you completely take us along, Walter, when you look at now and the present, refers to how to love our problems. How because I can imagine that you have kind of a similar way of addressing things, or.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can only reiterate then what I said last time, love your problem, not your solution. One of the big problems of innovation is we innovate, but we don't know what we innovate for. So we make fantastic things, many, many fantastic things, that then have to look for a problem. And sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it doesn't. But it is certainly not the best way to do so. So you have to start now and here. What would you like to solve? What is the real problem? Emission in agriculture. What is the real problem? And don't say, well, science is going to bring us solutions. I don't know. But what's your problem? Before you start thinking about science is going to solve our problems. We don't have that attitude, right? And referring to my sheep, one of the things you learn when you walk with those sheep is they tell you that it is now and here. Period. And yes, there is a purpose. Of course, you want to bring those sheep 230 kilometers further in the Alps and whatever. But they decide when they move. And you can sort of help them a little bit and co-create. But basically, it is the herd, it is the system that has to move. And if the system doesn't move, nothing moves.
Great. Okay, on that, we will continue the conversation further. Chiara, can you take us along, and then we come back to this moment. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to respond on also Walter's comment on how important it is to be in tune with the system. I think for me, that translates in my practice with some kind of a philosophy to design, to innovation, that is called life-centered design, and I try to capture it this way with this schematic right behind you. And the way I try to work with the people that I co-create with my stakeholders, is to offer the perspective that it's not always all about us, that we're not always at the center of everything that we do, and we shouldn't. because when that happens, the system gets out of balance. And so if we could put things in perspective and understand that we are a part of it, of the system, that we are a moving element in the system, our needs matter just as much as other living and non-living elements in the system. We would be striving for probably the kind of balance that we are probably all really looking for right now. You earlier were talking about how, there is so much beautiful innovation. We're striving for this, to fixing all this problem, but somehow there's still cracks. Somehow we seem not to be able to point exactly like what is going on. If design is a problem-solving approach, then why there's still so many problems to be solved, right? So it's, for me, it's a bit of a chicken and egg kind of situation, and truly a search for that balance that comes from looking at ourselves not at the center all the time. Yeah. Sometimes it's about the sheep being at the center. Yeah, exactly.
And how, because with your clients and the people you work with, how do you help them to not put themselves in the center? Because it's also something we're somehow trained to do, or at least we're so used to do at this moment.
Sometimes I do it secretly. They don't know. But I think one funny exercise that sometimes I suggest is to think about all the innovations that you are tired of, what you don't want to see anymore, that you don't want to see another edition of a vacuum cleaner, you don't want to see another edition of, I don't know, whatever. I guess if I asked the crowd right now, most of you will have an idea of something that you're like, oh, another ... whatever that is, car, vacuum cleaner, whatever. And that says something about this abundance, and I don't know that abundance is the right word, this excess, this out of balance excess. And another question that I like to ask is a bit like least modernism. So what is the least we could do to solve this problem? Right? What is the minimum action that we could put in place to address whatever issues that we have in front of us? And technology is not allowed, resource, like really try to bring it to the bare minimum. And then all of a sudden it seems like people realize, oh, indeed, what is the problem, right? And then a lot of the things that we try to fix with more actually needed very, very little. So yeah, these are very interesting questions that makes us also think like, oh, we're not at the center. We don't have to produce more. We don't have to make more. And as I say this, I also want to be extremely clear that I'm also, sometimes people have the idea that I'm saying like, oh, then we should stop then altogether and not make beautiful things and not innovate and not, that is not the point. The point is to create a bit of balance, and when we are deciding to use resources for a certain purpose, that we ask first, what is the minimum effort that we can put to try to address such problem? Yeah, that's...
And do your clients then, because I can imagine that this also makes people feel vulnerable in a sense, right? Because you have to really question, okay, why do we do things how we do it? Is the thing that we think is the problem really the problem? It's very existential questions actually that they then have to ask.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's funny because most of the work that I do now, I don't carry the title designer. I think for me a big revelation in my approach is that as I was trying to bring about, you know, innovation process, design thinking process with my clients, I felt that there was this missing pin. Like people were extremely excited to be part of this collective solution making, and then a few weeks later, months later, people will be like, yeah, somehow something didn't click. Somehow we took different directions, and that called me to look more into the world of coaching and counseling. So now, I primarily focus on facilitation, dialogue, space making, because obviously there is room for design and the creative process, but for me personally, what I like to do is to stay more in the asking those questions, and also make people comfortable with the uncomfortable, and maybe sometimes being asked, like, it is confronting. You're right. That
No, but I think you say something very beautiful. Somebody once told me, you designers are so comfortable with not knowing. Like, how do you do that? You're totally fine with starting something and then having no clue what comes out. And actually, you almost sound like you make your practice out of it. So just guiding people through that not knowing and trusting you that at some point you will get somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's a fair summary, and I think it's true. I think designers, creatives can be really attuned with this sense of like navigating the unknown, and I think it's our responsibility. I think as creatives, as designers, to make that process inclusive so that other people can enjoy, because it's actually once it's past the scary part, this is uncomfortable part, then it's a hell of a ride. Then it's really good. Yeah, at least from my modest opinion.
Nice, thank you. Well then, talking about a ride or a walk, Walter, can you take us along the experience that you had and what you learned from it?
Yeah, sure. I'm a part-time shepherd, for those of you that didn't catch that yet, and I am Wicked Problems Officer at Eindhoven Engine. So they brought that together in kind of a title that doesn't exist, of course. A little bit more than a year ago, I participated in the transhumance. Transhumance is a good old Mediterranean tradition. It's cultural heritage of the UNESCO, by the way, where they walk the animals from the valley up to the mountains in order to pass the summer there, and then after the summer they walk them down again. That happens with sheep, cattle, horses, whatever. So I participated in a gang of 2,700 sheep. If you can click it, then you see my 2,700 sheep that we had to walk up 230 kilometers in 2 weeks. And you arrive there, and of course, I'd never seen in my life 2,700 sheep, by the way. If you walk through a small village, that means 900 meters sheep, right? That's what it is. So it's a lot of sheep. And then you think, wow, how are we going to organize this? And you know what? You don't organize that. We were 6 shepherds and 5 dogs, and that's it. And the most important, and that makes you think about a lot of things what you've done in your life, of course. The most important is that you see that the coherence of the group, and even shepherds and dogs are part of that group. They live and co-create together. And you say, yeah, sure, that's of course, if you have a herd of animals, it's obvious, but if you do innovation, it's completely different. No, it's not. If you really want to make a meaningful innovation, you better worry about the system for which you do that, for who are you trying to help? Who has a problem? What would you like to reach? And as from there, the things create a kind of a coherence. You see that you can't push, you can't manage that. You move with that coherence. And of course, one of the questions that you really ask a lot of times is the slow versus the fast economy, just as much as the high-tech, low-tech, no-tech solutions that you suggest. You can have fantastic innovations with no-tech. We sort of exclude that, but there is no reason that you need to have tech. Now, one of the things that you really observe every minute is that contrast, that difference, but it's worse. It's a contrast between what I like to call the slow economy and the fast economy. If you're trapped behind a herd of sheep, you're trapped for half an hour, right? and you're just going to wait until we put the hurt aside. One time in the 2 weeks, I walked at the end of the flock. So I had all the people that were trapped behind, you know. Only one time I had a quarrel with somebody. All the other people felt it was something they had to be part of. That was our tradition, which it is. It's UNESCO heritage, etc. But people feel that. People know that. People see that. You see? And what we've done, of course, is we've moved entirely into the fast economy. And in order to go faster and faster and faster, we have really admired growth. It all has to be growth, 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 which of course is another disaster, right? And in order to improve or to accelerate that growth, we have to innovate, innovate, innovate. And there you get into a huge paradox that when you walk with those sheep, it is clear that this is a choice and maybe not the best choice. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned. So the point is, as I already said, love your problem, work with the people that have the problem, work with the people that would be happy if you would find an innovation that would help them, right? And then from there onwards, you start to build a systemic understanding of how can I do that in respect of each and everybody. More or less, you can't take everybody into account, but as many interested parties as possible. And also that you see when you walk with those sheep. I mean, it is not just walking with your sheep up in the Alps, but it's a cultural heritage. It are people that come and talk to you. It's like a Tour de France. At certain moments we had people aside that were clapping for us. You know, I never had that in my life, by the way. But there I had it many times. Why? Why is that? And if you really want to solve major issues, as you correctly say, if innovation would be so good, why do we still have all those problems? Huh? Since we don't start with the problem. That short enough? By the way, let me do a marketing pitch for those of you that are native Dutch speakers. I wrote a book about it.
Definitely, definitely.
I'm not going to miss that opportunity.
No. Well, now you're talking about the book. If we read a book, what will be, what questions do you hope we are going to ask ourselves?
Any questions about your being instead of your doing? We always talk about the fact that we are human beings, but in fact we became human doings. And we do and do and do, all days. We can hardly sit down and do nothing. Well, again, with those sheep, you do nothing. You walk behind those sheep. At 11 o'clock, you put them in a net. Between 11 and 4, you just lay down on the ground and do nothing. And at 4, you lift the nets and you walk until it's dark. Again, nets, and then, of course, in France, eating and drinking, right? And then you go to bed. That's your life. Right? So you literally sleep aside the sheep. Where you put the sheep, you sleep. That's it.
And because I took a sneak peek in your book.
Good.
And I thought it already the beginning was quite interesting because you run into a lady who asked you, are you a shepherd? And you said,
Yeah.
well, yes, but for about 3 years. And then she asked you, what did you do before?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, people always ask that, yeah. It's a very remarkable thing. So I'm now 4 years a shepherd. And of course, I haven't been a shepherd in my life. And then people start talking to you when they meet you with your herd. And then they very often say, oh, gosh, what a nice job. Oh, it's not a job. I do that as a freelance. Oh, okay, do you? Do you have an agricultural background? No, I don't. And of course, I try to avoid to say what I've been doing since it's a different world, you know. But eventually they insist. Then they ask, but how do you come there? You know, that's indeed where the book starts. And what I hope you learn from that is, what I learned from that is reflection to, why am I doing what I'm doing? And I had that reflection too late, of course, at my age. I should have had it earlier, but anyway, I missed that opportunity. But to really invite you to think about, is this what you'd like to do? You build your career, and you all have done that the way you do that. But then the question is this where your qualities are best used? Is this what makes you most happy? Is this what makes you most useful? And I don't complain in the book. I think I don't complain in the book. Do I? No, I don't complain in the book. Right. So it's not that I made wrong, that I say that I made wrong choices, but yes, you can question loads of your choices. I mean, about yourself, about how you feel yourself sitting into life in your job, but also your role in society, right? And I hope, in a way, if you read that book, that it helps you grounding yourself as a human being and move away from that human doing. I don't say you don't have to do anything, but it's the being. That I think we've lost that, right? And we should go back to that, I suggest.
Nice, thank you. I would like to open the questions to the floor, because I can't imagine, great, that you don't have any questions. Yeah. Could you please tell us who you are and then ask the question?
I'm Deniz and I'm from Turkey. So I would like to ask you, how do you define the problem? Is it the white man's problems, or are you going to say to, let's say, Palestinian kids who lost all family and relativities, are you going to tell him, love your problem, not solve it, don't cry, whatever? I think this problem is I don't know, I would like to know how do you define it? What is problem for you? Because in the Middle East, we have real problems. You cannot love them. You need to solve them. You need to be communicate with your society. You need to be like to solve your problems. You need to be a society, strong society. Okay, so independent. Europe is more independent. You know, you are more independent and you love it. So it is not you cannot solve the problems alone. As you see, these whole animals, they are not like this lonely penguin. They are together. Okay, so Europe, I'm out of the Europe. I think you need to see these animals together. They are trying to find a solution. So I would like to just know how do you define the problem? What is problem for you? Like I don't know, this is not sunny day, or etc. or tax or whatever, or I would like to say independency. Is it gonna help to solve the problems?
I learned to live with non-sunny days, by the way, so that's not a real problem. I go back to my wicked problems. I should probably have explained that. The wicked problem is a problem in a complex system, in a system that is created by the interaction of people. So every system that has people interacting creates complex, unforecastable problems. So, and it changes every minute. So the reality emerges out of that interaction. That, if you want to solve any problem in such a complex world, then your problem will be wicked, which means you do not have an upfront, immediate, clear solution. Now, as engineers, we are really oriented towards solving reasonably defined problems where we know where the solution is. Most, if not all, societal problems that I like to call problems that matter, really, in society, are wicked. Whether that is from cure to care in healthcare, whether that is low literacy problems that we deal with in Eindhoven Engine, whether that is regenerative agriculture or, say, solving the emission problem, whether that is immigration, you name them. Why is it so difficult to find solutions there, since we don't try to understand the problem? Very simple. I go back to COVID. If we would have done the effort to understand the whole system around COVID, we would not have had partial solutions one after the other. but we would have been able to really come up with solutions that deal with the system's problem, so to say. And in the case of COVID, it was a clear one. I think in the case of immigration, it's a clear one. But what is the real root cause? And yes, indeed, you can only see that in the crowd. You can only see that in the system that is involved. So where do you start? Talking to the system. You start in talking to the people that know what they suffer from.
Yeah, and I think what you're both also are saying is that being grounded and not putting yourself at the center also has to do with the responsibility, and also knowing your place within the system, and also your place in how you can try to move things around, or how as a collective you can move things around, right? So it's all in that sense, both the problem and the solution, or at least thinking towards a solution, are layered. Yeah.
A conductor of the orchestra doesn't play music. A trainer of a soccer team doesn't play soccer.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a question. So you pointed out. My name is Ernest. I'm a frequent visitor of Innovation Cafe, and thanks for your elaborations. Very interesting. You made a point that we should make a minimum effort, and I agree that we have to be resourceful. This is, I think, always true for all our actions. However, I wonder, isn't there a contradiction? Aren't you promoting the incremental change you criticized by asking for a minimum effort? Shouldn't we find out what the real problems are and then focus on these problems with maximum effort?
Nice. So first focusing and then maximum effort. How do you look at this, Chiara?
I completely agree. I think we're saying one and the same. I found surprising how actually focusing on what the real problem is require the minimum effort in terms of realizing that what we thought would be I don't know, something that we can fix with extreme amount of resources, actually maybe just needed a good question, maybe just needed a good conversation. Maybe we already had everything in front of us to solve it. So yes, approach-wise, I completely agree. I think first is about finding what the real problem is. Ask why enough times so that you get to that core. And once you're there, yes, then give it your all to solve that. I guess my challenge is really realizing like what is the my provocation, let's say, is more focused on inviting people to think more resourcefully, not to neglect the core of the problem. Does that make sense? I think that these two things can exist at the same time.
So you say stripping down, channel your inner third-year-olds and keep on asking
Yes.
why, and then give all the energy.
And then absolutely give it your all. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Hans, and I'm working on, let's say, in IT. And what I noticed, and I'm also working on a startup called Active at Age. And there we see very much, let's say, the fast society and the slow society, or there's fast technology.
Sorry.
Okay, the fast society and the slow society, and I wonder how so we see it also as a problem. So the more IT we have, everything is digitalizing, the more people get lonely, and so I see there's a technical solution, and I see that people are, let's say, more and more focused on themselves than on each other. And so there I see a contradiction, and it looks maybe a wicked problem, but I think we struggle a little bit in how to position ourselves in that area.
Yeah, it is not about, or it shouldn't be about the technology. That's the problem, right? It should be about how to reach people. I'm going to share a little anecdote of my shepherds I went with. They, for instance, and I think correctly so, were very frustrated with of course, government and Macron, everybody. They're French at the end of the day. But in one thing they were very right. They say, we don't understand that the municipalities, government, whatever, have all this information about us. And each time that we have to ask for a subsidy or a support, we have to fill out those loads and loads of documents of things that they already know. Why do they do that? And I think the problem of IT, with due respect, but the problem of IT is that we have identified very specific small problems that we have solved, and we have ignored that they are part of a wider reality. And I think we struggle with that, to get now to integrate different databases and systems that we have within the same company, and et cetera, et cetera. And that, I think, frustrates users.
Do you then also say that we are, because of our flexibility and our ability to adapt, we actually created layer over layer because it wasn't necessary to figure out what the problem was or how we could organize ourselves better in that sense?
I think that's how it evolved. I mean, I've been in IT since I graduated, so I've lived through all that technology myself. I mean, you put layer on layer on layer. You do something, and then you need to improve. You need to use other technologies. You have other machines. You have this and that. And you just stack problems. Yeah. Some of you were around at the year 2000. The panic that we had with the year 2000, since most of Fortran and COBOL programming was indeed with 2 digits and not with 4. See?
I stand up because I sit in the back. My name is Pat, and I am from the neighborhood. I have a little bit, let's say, a rapid questions for maybe both of you. Regeneration is something that I just heard today, other than from L'Oreal or face products of regeneration kind of thing. But okay, I mean, get to the point. It's beautiful, and of course, I agree with it. However, for us here as tech professionals or so, I would like to ask, then, if the regeneration is the center, then what does success actually look like? Number one, how do you measure regeneration in business context? Because we need money. And then the next one is, who pays for this? What do they get out of it? And last but not least, is there this regeneration idea? What does somebody Monday morning, today is Thursday, next week Monday morning, will benefit from it on their Monday morning on their desk? Is it something tangible or feel good? Thanks.
Chiara, can I ask you to start with whatever question you want from this collection?
Sorry, I'm really hung up on, is it tangible, is it feel good? Are they two different things? Or are they, I find that an interesting thought. For me, the feel good and tangible, it's a very tangible feel good feeling, right? So for me, there's not much of a difference. And maybe that won't help answering the question. I think the comment on, what is the practical, real life, the reality check on regeneration, right? That's what I hear from these questions. And it's valid. And quite frankly, I don't know. And if I knew, probably I wouldn't be sitting here. But it's an invitation, and I would love for more smart tech, all kinds of industry people to ask the very same question. Like what's success look like? I think for me, the word that we're not saying yet is profit. So if everything is always in function of profit, then of course, there is no business case for regeneration. And so we do need to think about restructuring that and think, is there another way to look at success? Is such a thing as enough? More than that, I don't know.
There might be a business case. I'm not so negative as you are. I'm sure there is a business case for recycling. We just have to think differently, and we have to be willing to search for it, right? But I'm going to honor my wife, since now I'm going to cite her. And she always says, what is good in life is what you proudly and happily talk to your grandchildren about. And what is not good in life is what you rather prefer to hide to them. Yes, it is a feel-good, but it is a feel-good so that you leave a planet that is still viable for your children, my grandchildren, whatever. It's her words, by the way, but I've honestly cited her, right? I didn't steal it. But it is so correct. If I come into a company and they tell to me that they want to be a more responsible company, I don't know many companies that don't say they want to do that. I don't say they do it, but they say they do it. And that's my first step. What do you want to be able to tell your grandchildren or children in 5 years' time that your company has achieved for their world? And that's not necessarily designing the next car.
And I'm going to ask one more question myself, because I don't know if this thought is helping, but couldn't you also state that at this point we are paying for not being regenerative? So in that sense that also we lose because we're not. So it costs us a lot. So in that sense, I think it's also thinking about from which perspective are we acting.
I think we are happy now to watch and to pay attention to not being regenerative. 10 years ago, I think the word was completely new. I'm not so sure whether anybody here, me certainly not, was aware of the word. So fortunately, you see that regenerative thinking now becomes into business thinking, into societal thinking, and I think that's a very good evolution.
And if I may add, regenerative indeed in this space maybe is as new and as old as ever. Is ancestral thinking, is thinking like, is my home safe? Am I giving back to what I'm taking enough? So I completely agree. I think we are paying the cost. Sometimes it's very visible, sometimes it's hidden costs of this.
First of all, I don't know, or I'm not sure if that's a long lost battle, but still, I have a different comment. So my name is Goran. I did some research in complexity theory. So my mentor was mentored by Kelso, arguably the founder of complexity theory. And my comment is more or less on the wicked problems of ships. So their wicked problem is that they offloaded or cognitively offloaded solving their security to somebody else. So that's the difference between ships and goats, I would say.
Could be true.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Harry, and Harry Hendricks, and I observed two things. One is it's important to understand the position you have in a system. Well, first question is, which system do you think you are in? But okay, that's the position for the person. And the other one is more related to Walter, I think, is stakeholders have passions and they have a drive to do things. And those two are kind of, the combination of those two is very important in the outcome. So how do you believe people may, if they want to be effective, whatever their goal is, whatever the problem they see, how to deal with those two different items which are both very important for your perceptions, for your behavior, and for the outcome you'll get it.
What you do with those people?
How would you suggest people deal with this, with those two observations, that your position is important and your passion is important?
Let me cite Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. If you want to build a ship, call people together and give them the desire for the endless sea. Don't recruit a bunch of engineers that are going to build you the same ship that they have built 200 times. If you really want to innovate, if you really want to come to market, to society with something that matters, that is meaningful, and that innovates, that is something new, then you indeed need to build on that passion, that vision, that passion that people share. And together, if you bring together a group of 10 people, 20 people, 500 people that share that passion, magic is going to happen. Since indeed that is what drives, I think, innovation. It is that passion to really contribute to something meaningful, to something that matters in life. So bring those people together that share that passion.
I don't have so much a question, but just a remark. I saw that the lady from Turkey was leaving us, and I want to express, if anybody knows her, that I care a lot about what she said, because it's absolutely something that I feel in my heart, that if you look to the suffering of people, that you don't say, love your problems. If there is an accident in the streets and somebody's really suffering, you don't say, oh, just love your problem. It's just that I could feel what she tried to address to us. And so if you know her, just tell her that I really do care. And I think we all care. And that it was a beautiful question that she asked. And so hopefully she is somewhere that I just can tell this to her myself. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Walter, what you also answered on our question is, of course, there are different type of problems, and I think it's also interesting in what she addresses that you as a person can be a victim within a bigger problem, but you as a person can't solve your own problem. And in that sense, I think what you both are also addressing is there's also a responsibility, right? Not putting ourselves in the center, knowing how we are part of the system, knowing where do we want to go, also has to do with the responsibility that we carry out for all the people around us and society we're actually present in. And I think in terms of talking about regeneration, or also about the problem of about feeling good about it, but also this stacking of layer and layer and layer, it also becomes very easy to not take a role in that, or at least to think that I can't, or being so solution driven, because also the need to change something sometimes feels very counteractive. That was what I was looking for. Then trying to run and trying to speed up and trying to reach that solution, and then just go for a moonshot and then hope we have the right spot that we want to go to. But yeah, Betty, sorry, you also had a question.
Oh, no worries. So I have kind of 2 points. I I identify with your first picture where you show the king and then in the center of the universe, and then you show the real universe as it is. But we can all have the intent to be on the right, but what if the world has some bad actors in it, let's say, and we know who those people are, and they're obstructing our efforts to we can get the 500 positive people behind us, but then when people are actively making chaos that causes us to not achieve our goals or move forward, that's why we're not moving forward. We have these obstructionists who are greedy and bastards. I come from a country full of them at the moment, and I'm living here now, and I'm very happy in many ways, but I also see that it can creep in here too. We have to all find a way to align on what is empathy and these things. That was kind of, maybe I'll just stop with that because I think we all need to recognize these problems and find a way to push the bastards down, you know what I'm saying?
Can you, because we're almost at rounding up, what do you want us to remember tomorrow? In terms of also what Betty is saying, if we look at this empathy, if we want to figure out how do we align, how do we find the people that want to move, what do we need to really remember tomorrow to figure out where our position is, what the system is around us, and how we could try at least a little to move things forward? What would both your advice be to us?
Well, touch some grass, look at the sky, look at each other, and care. That will be it.
I think that's beautiful. Thank you.
I would say try to become a human being instead of human doing. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah. So, well, I'm not gonna even try to repeat it. Thank you both for that. I think in this day and age, it's very important. So thank you both for your stories. Oh, sorry. Yes.
I'll do the one final question maybe, and then you're gonna summarize. Yes. Was Walter, right? Yeah, your experience as a shepherd, I agree that it's probably one of the best ways to handle the self-discovery. I think it used to be a sort of a standard job for prophets as well in the past. But the title was Interpretations of Quantum Interpretations of Lived Experience. So how do you, I couldn't really connect what did you discuss? That is something related to quantum and quantum physics or mechanics or being shepherd? So I can take it.
I never connected it to shepherding. No, I've written a book about the quantum interpretation of innovation. So if you look from a quantum reality into what innovation is, what do you see then? But that is a topic in itself, so I don't think I'm going to start on that one. Now you could have a lot of observations out of the basic rules behind quantum mechanics when you observe sheep, but then you're trying to interpret things which I think are not necessarily there.
Thank you. Henk. Hans, oh sorry. Can I ask you, because for the people that are here for the first time, Hans has the quality of finding the right sum up for the conversation that we just had. And since we're all, of course, after this are going for a drink, and much have been said, can you give us your insight on this conversation so that we can use that as a starting point for our lovely drink and our follow-up conversations?
Thank you. Well, I thank you very much for the challenging ideas you've put across, and they called up a lot of associations for me. The first one is the future. I mean, people are always talking about looking at future. I think we are like the rowing boat and we are moving with our back towards the future. That's the point I picked up from you, and what the future will be like, we can see in the now and the past. And that means learning from the mistakes and being as humane as possible in the now. I also learned that you gave a great warning for superlative thinking. I mean, that seems to be the thing, and in America we have a guy who is the greatest in that. So I think we should refrain, and I heard that in your words too. Don't go for the best, better, more, and evermore. That's a very interesting point, I think. And the idea of the sheep called up for me the image of the horse. I mean, the Latin meaning of manage is leading a horse by the hand. And you can't make a horse do things. You have to listen to what it can do and wants to do. And I think that's a very good interpretation of changing systems. And then about change, I had to think of D.H. Lawrence. He once said, "Do you think it's easy to change?" It's very difficult, it's very hard to change and be different, for you have to go through the waters of oblivion. You have to forget how you did things. And I think I heard that too in your speech and your answers. And then I picked up the idea of Lou Harrison, that's a jazz piano player, and he put the 4 C's on the paper, and he said, first, cherish. So not everything that is old is bad. Conserve the things of the past that are good. Consider, and that means not everything that is new is better. So conserve and consider which you should take, and then create. That is the point where I think we should come to. And therefore we need skin in the game. So people should never be able to design something, and they shouldn't be allowed to design something which they don't feel the results of themselves. So they first have to go through it themselves. Every fortnight, 2 days, doing that work. And then I would say design for the real problems and look at the solutions. They should always be humane. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Then 2 last things. The next Innovation Cafe will be on the 30th of April, the last Thursday of the month, of course. So please come back, bring your friends. Like I said at the beginning, this talk has also been recorded. If you want to look at it again, or if you feel that somebody really needs to see it, please spread it out. And if you want to support us with creating the Innovation Cafe with anything you can, please do so. And have a lovely drink. And take a look at the book if you want to. Have a really, really lovely evening. Thank you.